Blood. It was the first thing that hit him, the metallic tang mixing with the stench of burning rubber and spilled milk under the merciless Arizona sun. "Lila! No, God, Lila!" 72-year-old Elias Hammer Kane, a man who had lost his legs 3 decades ago in a debt of blood for his brothers, dragged his shattered body across the blistering asphalt at the intersection of 7th and Maple. His hands ripped open, leaving bloody trails as he pulled his wife of 45 years into his lap. Her silver hair was soaked crimson. The grocery bag lay torn open, white milk pooling like mocking tears beside the growing puddle of her blood. 3 young thugs in a jacked-up black truck laughed from the curb, the one who had just blasted through the red light and nearly ended them both. "Call the cops, old man. See what happens," one sneered. But Elias wasn't helpless. Not today. With trembling fingers stained red, he clutched the old dog tag around his neck, the one that read, "Blackthorn Hammer Forever," and dialed the number etched into his soul. The Iron Reapers were coming, and when they arrived, the streets of Blackthorn would never forget. The Arizona sun hammered down like a white-hot blade on the cracked asphalt of 7th and Maple, turning the Labor District air into a choking furnace of dust and exhaust. But it wasn't the brutal heat that froze Blackthorn in its tracks that Tuesday afternoon. It was the scream. A raw, soul-shredding wail that sliced through the roar of 40 idling Harley-Davidsons like a gunshot in a cathedral. "Lila!" 72-year-old Elias Hammer Kane, legs long gone, stolen by infection and sacrifice 3 decades earlier, clawed forward on the blistering road, his aluminum wheelchair flipped on its side behind him. Sweat poured down his scarred, weathered face in rivers, stinging the old knife wounds that mapped every war he'd survived. His hands tore open against the asphalt, leaving bloody streaks that smoked in the heat, but he didn't feel it. All he felt was her. Lila Kane, 68. Silver hair pulled into that tight, elegant bun he'd loved for 45 years. She lay crumpled on the concrete curb like a broken porcelain doll, the cheap plastic grocery bag ripped wide open beside her. Milk pooled white and mocking across the blood that was already spreading from the gash in her scalp. Crimson against the grey of her hair, thick and slow under the merciless sun. They had been invisible just minutes ago. 2 ordinary ghosts in a rushing world. Elias in his faded flannel and worn-out jeans, Lila clutching the single bag that held his heart pills, a loaf of bread, and a carton of milk they could barely afford. 45 years of poverty, of loss, of that one nightmare crash that had taken his legs and nearly taken his life. Through every hell, they had each other. She was his universe. He was hers. The green light had chimed its cheerful little ding. Lila had smiled that soft, unbreakable smile, resting her hand gently on his shoulder. "Ready, old man?" Elias had growled back with that warm, gravelly affection only she ever had. "Always ready for you, Lila." They were halfway across when death came screaming. A jacked-up black pickup truck, lifted so high it looked like a monster on steroids, blasted straight through the red light. The driver, Bryce Blaze Harrington, 20 years old and drowning in cheap cologne and entitled rage, never looked up from his phone. Tires howled, rubber burned. The smell of scorched asphalt exploded into the air like gunfire. Lila's eyes widened in pure terror. She yanked the wheelchair backward with every ounce of strength left in her frail body. The chrome bumper stopped inches from Elias's knees. The side mirror clipped her shoulder hard enough to spin her around. She staggered. "Watch the road, you bastard!" Her voice cracked with fury and fear. Bryce slammed on the brakes. The truck rocked to a stop. He leaped down from the towering cab, towering over her like a predator. His lips curled into a sneer. "What the hell did you just say, you old hag?" Lila stepped in front of Elias's wheelchair, shielding him with her small frame. "You almost killed my husband." Bryce laughed, low and ugly. He stepped closer, his hot breath blasting across her face like a furnace. "Or maybe you and that crippled old fart should stop dragging your sorry asses into the street." Elias's knuckles whitened on the armrests. His voice dropped into that deep, thunderous timbre that once commanded respect from men far more dangerous than this punk. "Back off, kid." Bryce's two buddies, Jax and Ryder, jumped out, forming a menacing half-circle. Tattoos, smirks, pure venom. The trap closed. Before Elias could move, Bryce shoved Lila with brutal force. Time slowed. Her foot caught the wheel of the chair. She stumbled. Her arms flailed. The concrete rushed up to meet her. Crack! The sound of her skull hitting the curb echoed like a gunshot. The grocery bag exploded. Milk sprayed across the road in white arcs that looked sickeningly like blood under the sun. Lila crumpled, motionless. A dark red river began to flow from the silver of her hair, pooling beneath her cheek. "Lila!" Elias's scream tore out of him like his soul was being ripped in half. Tears cut clean tracks through the dust and sweat on his face. He lunged forward in the wheelchair, desperate, furious, broken. The chair tipped. His heavy, legless body slammed onto the scorching asphalt. Pain exploded through his elbows and palms as skin shredded against the road, but he kept crawling, elbows dragging, knees scraping raw, leaving a trail of his own blood mixed with the black tar. Bryce threw his head back and laughed, loud and cruel. He even backed the truck up a few feet, engine growling like it wanted to finish the job, to crush them both onto those massive tires. But the crowd was watching now. Phones were out, murmurs turned to shouts. Elias reached her. With trembling, blood-slick hands he pulled Lila into his arms, cradling her limp head against his chest. "Lila, baby, wake up, please. Don't you dare leave me." His voice shattered. "Lila, I can't do this without you." He lifted his head toward the three laughing thugs, eyes blazing with a father's rage and a warrior's fury. "Somebody help my wife! Call an ambulance! They hit her! They hit my wife!" The nightmare had only just begun, but the Iron Reapers were already answering the call. Blood soaked through Elias Kane's shirt, warm and sticky against his chest, as he rocked his wife in his arms on the burning asphalt. Lila's breathing was shallow, ragged, each faint hitch like a knife twisting deeper into his soul. The three punks stood 10 feet away, laughing like hyenas, Bryce still twirling his keys like the whole world owed him a favor. Elias's hands shook so violently he could barely grip the phone. His elbows were shredded raw from crawling. His knees scraped to the bone, but none of that pain reached him. The only thing that existed was Lila's pale face, the slow trickle of blood from her silver hair, and the cold certainty that the system would screw them again. Rich kid, powerful daddy, poor old cripple with no legs and no voice. But Elias Hammer Kane still had one card left, one secret buried for 30 years beneath the quiet life he and Lila had built from the ashes. With fingers slicked with blood, he yanked open the top button of his faded flannel and pulled out the heavy silver dog tag that had hung against his heart since 1989. The metal was warm, scarred, alive. On the front, the snarling skull logo of the Iron Reapers. On the back, 3 words etched deep enough to last forever. Blackthorn hammer, forever. He flipped it over, dug the cheap burner phone from his pocket, the one he hadn't touched in a decade, and dialed a single number burned into his marrow. It rang once, twice. A low, gravel voice answered. "Yeah." Elias's throat closed. Tears burned hotter than the Arizona sun. Titan. It's Hammer. 7th and Maple. Blackthorn. They hurt Lila. They hurt her bad. Silence on the other end. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the voice of Ronan Titan Vargas, president of the Iron Reapers, turned to ice-cold steel. Stay alive, brother. We're coming. Nobody touches her again. 5 miles away, the Iron Reapers' fortified clubhouse smelled of charred meat, motor oil, leather, and freedom. 40-plus patched members were mid-barbecue under the blistering sun, music thumping, beer flowing, laughter rolling like thunder. Titan Vargas, 50-something mountain of a man with prison ink crawling up both arms and a salt and pepper beard that looked carved from granite, stood at the head of the long picnic table. The moment he heard Hammer, the blood in his veins turned to concrete. Most of the younger prospects had no idea who Elias Kane was, but the old guard, the ones who had ridden through the blood-soaked wars of the 70s and 80s, froze mid-bite. Because Hammer wasn't just a name. He was the legend who had built their reputation one custom chopper at a time. More importantly, in 1989, when a rival cartel ambush turned a roadside bar into a slaughterhouse, Titan had been pinned down, bleeding out. A single bullet meant for Titan's skull found Elias instead, ripping through his spine, shattering his legs, forcing the amputation that stole his mobility forever. Elias had traded his ability to walk for Titan's life. The club had sworn an unbreakable oath that day. Hammer and Lila would be protected until the last Reaper drew breath. Titan's massive hand crushed the phone. His voice cut through the party like a gunshot. Kill the music, mount up. Every patched member, every prospect. Hammer called. Somebody just put hands on his old lady. No questions. No hesitation. In 30 heart-pounding seconds, engines roared to life like the gates of hell cracking open. 40 Harley-Davidsons thundered in unison. V-twin war drums shaking the ground, chrome flashing like lightning, exhaust rolling thick and black. Titan led from the front, cutting straight through red lights, a chrome tsunami of vengeance tearing down the highway towards 7th and Maple. Back at the intersection, Bryce swaggered closer, baseball bat now in his grip, tapping it against his palm. Call whoever you want, old cripple. Ain't nobody coming to save your sorry ass. Elias pulled Lila tighter against his chest, dog tag clenched so hard the edges cut into his palm. His eyes burned with a fire that had never died. He was ready to bleed out right here on this street if it meant buying her one more second of life. The ground began to tremble. Far off, but growing, a low, primal growl rolled across the desert like distant thunder. The Iron Reapers were coming, and they were bringing hell with them. The Arizona sun baked the blood on the asphalt into a dark, sticky crust. Elias Kane lay curled on the scorching road like a broken animal, cradling Lila's limp body against his chest. Her silver hair was matted crimson. Her breathing was so faint it barely stirred the hot air between them. The distant wail of an ambulance siren felt like a cruel joke. Miles away, too slow, too late. 10 feet away, Bryce, Blaze, Harrington leaned against the hood of his jacked-up black truck, vaping lazily, a cruel smirk twisting his face. "Look at the old cripple," he sneered, exhaling sweet-smelling clouds. "Still crying over his bitch like she's gonna wake up and bake him cookies." Jax laughed and pointed. "Dude's losing it, probably stroking out right there on the pavement." Elias didn't answer. He just held Lila tighter, his shredded elbows and knees burning like fire against the blacktop, dog tag cutting into his palm. The world had shrunk to the faint rise and fall of her chest and the prayer he kept repeating under his breath. Don't leave me. Not like this. Then the ground trembled. At first it was nothing, just a low vibration under the spilled milk that rippled outward like a pond disturbed by something massive. The laughter died. Bryce straightened, frowning. The rumble grew. Deep, primal. 40 V-twin hearts beating as one, rolling across the desert like approaching thunder from the pits of hell. Not police sirens, not rescue, something far more dangerous. A wall of blinding headlights punched through the heat haze, chrome flashing like blades in the sun. 40 Harley-Davidsons crested the hill in perfect formation, engines howling in unison, a chrome armada of death and loyalty screaming down 7th Street. Bryce's face drained of all color. Shit, get in the truck, now! He scrambled for the door, but it was already too late. Titan Vargas raised one massive, gloved fist. In a single, heart-stopping maneuver that looked ripped straight from a war movie, the entire Iron Reaper's pack executed a perfect sliding stop. Tires screamed, bikes leaned hard, sliding sideways in a thunderous ballet of steel and leather. 40 machines formed an unbreakable ring of chrome and fury, completely boxing in the black truck, front and rear, sealing every escape route. Traffic slammed to a halt for miles in every direction, horns blaring uselessly into the sudden, deafening silence. Then, one by one, the engines died. The quiet that followed was heavier than the roar had been. 40 patched-out warriors dismounted in eerie sync, boots hitting the pavement like the footsteps of giants. They moved slow, deliberate, predators circling wounded prey. Titan Vargas, mountain of muscle, prison ink crawling up his neck, salt and pepper beard framing a face carved from pure vengeance, strode forward. Beside him loomed Brick, the club's 6'8" enforcer, a walking wall of scar tissue and muscle. Titan dropped to one knee beside Elias, his huge hand gentle as he rested it on the old man's shoulder. His voice, usually a bark of command, came out soft, almost reverent. "We're here, Hammer. Your brother's got you. We got Lila, too." He snapped his fingers. 2 prospects with medical kits rushed in, carefully lifting Lila onto a backboard while Elias watched with shattered eyes, whispering her name like a lifeline. Then Titan rose. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as he turned toward the 3 terrified punks now backed against their truck. Bryce's hand shook as he snatched the baseball bat from the bed. Jax fumbled for a folding knife. Ryder looked ready to piss himself. The air crackled with violence. A hot-blooded prospect lunged forward, but Titan's massive arm shot out, stopping him cold. "Not in front of Hammer," he growled. "We don't paint the street red where he can see it." Titan crossed the distance in 3 strides. His hand clamped around Bryce's throat like a steel vice and lifted the 200-pound punk clean off the ground, slamming him against the hood of his own truck. The metal dented under the impact. "You got any idea who the fuck you just put on the ground, boy?" Titan's voice was low, lethal. "That's Lila Kane, wife of the man who gave his legs so I could keep breathing. You just woke up the entire Iron Reapers." Brick scooped Elias up as easily as a child, carrying him toward Titan's bike while the rest of the club formed a living wall of leather and muscle around them. Sirens finally pierced the standoff, 3 patrol cars and the ambulance screaming in. But the wall of Harleys didn't budge. Officers stepped out, hands hovering near weapons, eyes wide at the 40 stone-faced outlaws staring them down. Sergeant Brock froze mid-step, recognizing Elias instantly. The tension stretched like piano wire ready to snap. Elias, safe in Brick's arms, looked past the chaos toward the 3 punks now realizing they had just kicked a hornet's nest the size of Arizona. The moment between life and death had arrived, and the Reapers had brought the storm. The standoff at 7th and Maple had become a pressure cooker of chrome and leather. 40 iron reapers stood like an unbreakable wall of muscle and vengeance, their boots planted on the blood-stained asphalt, while Sergeant Brock and his officers hesitated, hands hovering near holsters. The air crackled with tension thick enough to choke on, exhaust, fear, and the copper tang of spilled blood. Sergeant Brock's eyes locked onto Elias Kane instantly. The old man's face, scarred, tear-streaked, streaked with dirt and his wife's blood, hit him like a freight train. He knew that face. Everyone in Blackthorn's underbelly knew the legend of Hammer. Elias, Brock breathed, voice cracking with recognition. What the hell happened here? Elias clutched Lila tighter, his shredded hands trembling as the words tore out of him in a raw, broken sob. They ran the red light. That bastard in the truck. He shoved her. She hit her head. She won't wake up. His voice shattered like glass. They laughed while my Lila bled out on the street. Bryce Harrington, still pinned against his truck by Titan's iron grip, started screaming like a cornered rat. "He's lying! The old cripple and his hag wife jumped in front of me. I swear, officer, they're trying to scam me." The crowd stayed deathly silent. Phones hovered, but no one stepped forward. Fear of the rich kid's daddy, fear of the reapers, fear of getting involved, it all kept mouths sealed shut. Until her. Chloe, the young barista from the corner coffee shop, pushed through the leather wall on shaking legs. Her hands trembled as she held up her phone like it was a holy relic. I filmed everything," she whispered, voice barely above a breath but carrying like thunder. "He blew straight through the red light. He cursed at them. He pushed her, hard. Then he laughed while she lay there bleeding. It's all here, crystal clear." The video played on speaker. Every brutal second. The truck roaring through the intersection. The shove. The sickening crack of Lila's skull on concrete. Bryce's mocking laughter echoing over the spilled milk and blood. Sergeant Brock's face hardened into stone. In one swift motion, he spun Bryce around and snapped the cuffs on tight. "Bryce Harrington, you're under arrest for aggravated assault on an elderly person. You have the right to remain silent." Jax and Ryder tried to bolt. They didn't make it 3 steps before reapers grabbed them like rag dolls. Cuffs clicked. The 3 punks were dragged toward the patrol cars, faces pale as ghosts. As Bryce passed Titan, the club president leaned in close, breath hot against the kid's ear, voice low and lethal as a blade pressed to the throat. "The system might lock you up, but if she doesn't wake up, no prison on this earth will keep you safe from us. Start praying, boy. Pray hard." The ambulance finally screamed away with Lila inside, lights flashing like desperate prayers against the dying sun. Elias rode with her, dog tag clenched in his bloody fist, whispering her name the entire way. At the hospital, the waiting room became a sea of black leather and silent fury. 40 reapers filled the halls like an army standing guard over one broken king. Elias sat hunched in a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor where the dog tag dug into his palm. Every second felt like a lifetime. Then the nightmare spiked. From inside the trauma bay came the sudden, violent sound of monitors exploding into chaos. Beep, 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 beep. A deafening, flatline scream. Lila's body convulsed on the table, back arching, doctors shouting orders as they fought to stabilize her concussion. Elias tried to rise, heart tearing itself apart, but Brick's massive hand held him gently in place. "She's fighting, brother. Let them work." 2 agonizing hours crawled by. Finally, the trauma doors hissed open. The lead doctor stepped out, face exhausted, sweat-soaked scrubs clinging to him. He faced the wall of stone-cold bikers and cleared his throat. "She's stable. 14 stitches. No brain bleed. She's awake. and she's asking for her husband. A collective breath rushed out of 40 hardened men like a tidal wave of relief. Elias didn't wait. Brick carried him through the doors like he weighed nothing. The moment Elias saw her, pale, bandaged, but those eyes open and full of love, he broke. He took her hand, pressed it to his tear-streaked face, and sobbed like a child. Lila's fingers, weak but warm, brushed through his hair. Her voice was a fragile whisper, yet it filled the room with light. "I heard those engines, so loud outside. You called the old brothers, didn't you?" Elias nodded, choking on the words. "I called the cavalry, my love. They came." But even in that fragile moment of peace, danger still lurked. Down the hallway, one of Bryce's father's hired muscles slipped past security, cornering a terrified nurse and snarling threats about making this disappear. He never saw the Reapers coming. In seconds, the hallway was flooded with leather and muscle. Titan stepped forward, voice calm but deadly. "Touch her again, and you join your boy in hell." The tug backed away fast, disappearing into the night. No one would touch the Kanes again. Not tonight, not ever. The desert wind howled through the courthouse steps 2 weeks later, carrying the bitter taste of justice served cold. Bryce Harrington's father, real estate warlord, king of backroom deals and golden handshakes, had thrown everything at the wall. Millions in bribes whispered into the right pockets. Private investigators stalking Chloe the barista, leaving death threats taped to her apartment door at 3 a.m. The most expensive defense team money could buy, suits sharper than switchblades, ready to paint Lila Kane as a reckless old woman who tripped herself for a payout. But the Iron Reapers had built their own empire in the shadows for decades. They called in Luciano Ace Moretti, the shark in a 3-piece suit who owed Titan Vargas a blood debt from a war nobody talked about anymore. Ace took the case for $0, walked into that courtroom like he owned the gavel, and let the viral video do the talking. Crystal clear footage played on every screen. The red light, the shove, the laughter while milk and blood mixed on the asphalt. The jury didn't even need closing arguments. Bryce Blaze Harrington was sentenced to 5 years in state prison. Jax and Ryder each got 2 years of strict probation and community service that would feel like chains. But the civil suit was the real apocalypse. Ace tore the Harrington empire apart like a wolf ripping through sheep. Hidden accounts, tax evasion, payoffs, everything spilled into the public record. The family was forced to liquidate everything, including the jacked-up black pickup that had nearly ended 2 lives on 7th and Maple. The money flooded in like a tidal wave, hospital bills erased, a brand-new off-road electric wheelchair that could conquer any terrain, and a quiet, 1-story home in the safest corner of Blackthorn, complete with ramp and reinforced doors. No more scraping by, no more ghosts in the machine. 2 weeks after the nightmare, the hospital doors slid open under a blazing afternoon sun. Lila Kane stepped out, silver hair freshly washed and shining, 14 stitches hidden beneath a soft scarf, but her eyes held the same unbreakable fire. She moved slowly, still fragile but alive, victorious. There was no taxi waiting. Instead, the parking lot had become a cathedral of chrome and thunder. 40 Harley-Davidsons idled in perfect formation, engines rumbling like the heartbeat of an army that refused to die. At the front sat Titan Vargas, astride his custom Road King, a gleaming classic sidecar attached like a throne built for royalty. The sidecar's leather was polished until it reflected the sky. A single red rose rested on the seat. Titan dismounted and walked forward, massive arms open. He helped Lila down the ramp with a gentleness that could have moved mountains, lowering her into the sidecar like she was made of the finest glass. She settled in, queen of the asphalt, and looked up at him with a smile that could heal the world. Elias rolled up beside her in his new wheelchair, the motors humming softly. Their eyes met. 45 years of love, pain, sacrifice, and now unbreakable triumph passing between them without a single word. He reached out, took her hand, and pressed it to his cheek the way he had on that blood-soaked street. From the front of the pack, Titan raised one fist high. The entire club answered with a single, earth-shaking roar of engines. 40 V-twins screaming in perfect unison. A war cry that shook the hospital windows and turned every head for blocks. Then the armada moved. Harleys rolled out in a living wall of steel and loyalty, escorting the sidecar like the royal guard protecting its sovereigns. Traffic parted. Horns fell silent. People on sidewalks stopped, phones raised, whispering in awe as the procession thundered past. No one dared cut them off. No one would ever dare again. Halfway home, a black SUV appeared in the rear view. Last desperate muscle from the Harrington machine. Engine snarling. Driver clearly ordered to finish what Bryce had started. The Reapers reacted like lightning. Bikes peeled off in perfect choreography, forming an impenetrable wall of chrome and muscle. Titan himself swung out, slammed a gloved fist into the driver's window, shattering it into 1,000 glittering pieces, and leaned in so close the man inside could smell leather and death. "Touch them again, and there won't be enough pieces left to bury," Titan growled. The SUV reversed so fast it left rubber on the road and vanished into the dust. The procession rolled on. When they finally reached the new house, the Reapers didn't just drop them off. They formed a double line down the driveway, 40 patched warriors standing at attention, engines idling low and respectful. Titan and Brick carried Elias and Lila inside together, setting them gently on the couch that smelled of fresh leather and new beginnings. Elias looked around the safe, sunlit room, then back at the sea of faces outside the open door. His voice cracked with emotion he no longer tried to hide. "You didn't just save us. You reminded the whole damn world that some families are forged in blood and never break." Lila leaned her head on his shoulder, fingers laced with his. "We're not invisible anymore, old man. We're home." Titan stepped forward, removed a heavy Iron Reaper's patch from his own cut, and placed it gently in Elias's hands. "This belongs to you forever, Hammer. The oath still stands. You bled for us once. We'll bleed for you until the last engine dies." The entire club echoed as one, voices low and thunderous. "Until the last engine dies." Outside, 40 engines revved once, deep, respectful, final, before the Reapers mounted up and rode into the sunset, leaving behind the echo of loyalty that would outlast every empire of money and fear. Elias and Lila Kane sat together on their new couch, the Arizona sky turning gold through the window. No longer ghosts, no longer broken. They were royalty now, protected, cherished, immortal in the only way that mattered. Under the wing of the Iron Reapers, they had found their family. And the streets of Blackthorn would never forget the day a crippled old man made one phone call, and an entire army answered.